Okay. Mhm. Well, let's drag them up. Hello there.
Hi?
Hello, hello. I can hear you
Hello.
now. Okay. My audio is way too loud. 1 second. Okay. My game audio was still like on the audio that I normally play the game at, which for
Mhm.
looking at replays is a lot louder than it should be.
No, it's fine, don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, we have a few games. You said you mostly wanted to look at decision making and awareness, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Like genuinely, I hope my tone didn't come across weird there. If so, then that was just because I'm a little tired. Okay, which of
Yeah, yeah.
these games do you think you'd like to start with?
Like, I don't care, honestly. We
Okay,
can start whenever you want.
okay. Yeah, we can start with just the bottom one
Yeah.
then. Okay, okay. You should be able to see the stuff in the Discord screen share. Are you able to see the funny smiley face as well?
I...
Okay. Yeah, this is quite a comp, but I think that this was just open, right?
yeah.
Okay. hmm Okay. So awareness mostly comes down to like being able to see a lot of things around what the enemy team is doing, to some degree also what your team is doing. And then being able to like follow up and take a good decision based on that. So yeah, I don't hate this opening fight here. Yeah, good job fighting mechanically. I like how you're like dodging between those different parts of cover
Mhm.
to like make it difficult for, in this case, the rapid blaster to hit you. Okay, so that kind of stuff is dangerous.
yeah.
It works out here, and you do a really good job of like dodging them. But with Dynamo, you kind of have to watch out. Where like if they aim correctly, they do get you here.
Yeah.
Um,
Like,
mhm,
definitely.
yeah. With Dynamo, it's often a case of like, do I have time between their two swings to actually get in, like, get in range and splat them? Because if not, then usually like you shouldn't go forward and you shouldn't try to go into them, and you should try to just paint over their feet, throw bombs at them to make them hate their life. Mhm, I like this crap though. Mhm. Okay. I guess for like in-fight decision making, something to like valuable to consider oftentimes is how like how fast you like how far is your enemy away and how fast can you get into the range. That second
Mhm.
one is specifically an important consideration because you're playing duelies. A weapon that can get into enemy range a lot quicker than you might expect. Or like than Mom the Rapid Blaster might expect. Um, so the idea is like, are we able to actually move forward into them, into the range? Or can they just kite us? That is, can they back up and kind of stay outside of your range all the time and poke you with their longer range? And I think that was like a case where they had more range, and they had safe space to back up to, partially also because like um, the fan is moving back. And sometimes in those
Yeah,
situations, you just can kind of should try to stay safe.
yeah, like I didn't want to move back because it's a rapid blaster, so it could kill me easily.
Mm.
So yeah, I just thought I could at least try it, but nah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, you get close to actually spreading
Mhm.
them, so that's good. Mhm. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. We're gonna talk about warning signals. Um, Warning signals is like a like concept of like things that you should see when you're playing a game, and that should make you think, I should play safe. I should not walk forward. I should make sure that um like I get into a position where I'm safe because usually when you see those warning signals, you are not safe.
Yeah.
So like generally, like the biggest warning signal is probably just paint. Um, and again, we're playing dually, so it's a bit less of a warning signal, but it still is. Of like,
Mhm.
if there's enemy paint, then that means we have to be scared that enemies can be here and they can move faster than we can and they can recover ink faster than we can and all that kind of stuff. In this case, stuff like whales on you is also another thing. Basically, any special that the enemy has should be a warning signal for you. Should make you think, uh-oh, wait, they can, um, they have the special that usually means that they can get a really like big power spike. Um, and that means we should be careful of that. So in this case, like we are whaled, and I think we we see a lot of enemies just in front of us as well.
I think I
Um,
dropped by accident because yeah, I
oh,
know I shouldn't.
I see.
Yeah, yeah, like that
Oh,
was
I
not
see.
my idea.
Okay. I see. That makes a lot more sense. Mhm. That makes a lot more
Mhm.
sense. When I first like looked at it, it looked a bit intentional. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but that
No,
makes
it
more
wasn't.
sense. We just messed up
Yeah,
movement
I
and then kind of
know.
ended up here.
I know where I'm in disadvantage. I shouldn't like
Mhm.
rush by myself. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, good job. Good job. Good job.
but yeah, I got punished by that.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense then. Um, yeah, I think the general concept of like warning signals can still be useful. But yeah, good job like recognizing those in that situation.
Mhm.
Hmm. Nice. Okay. You're just killing everyone. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, good job like mechanically outplaying there. Yeah. I like how like you stayed in this area for a bunch of time because that's really awkward for the enemy team. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in the time where the enemy team is respawning, we have a bunch of like opportunities to like either pinch them here. I mean, not anymore, but like in the situation we were before. Um, just because like we are in a much more aggressive position than like we usually would be in this map. I mean, this map is weird, so you can get here quite fast, but still, that means like we can play this quite well. And I like how you played it here. Of just kind of staying here, seeing if you can do anything, and then
Yeah, yeah,
eventually dropping, because that's another good part. Because eventually people will respawn, and as soon as people respawn, you are in a rough situation. Sometimes you can like mechanically outplay, but usually it'll be like they have spawn armor, they have high ground, they have like teammates from this direction and teammates from this direction. That just means you kind of have to back up. So good job recognizing that.
thank you.
hmm Unfortunate bomb.
Yeah.
I think it was like behind the block. hmm Okay. Yeah, nice. I'm not sure if this was intentional, but good job on like healing up between the fights. Like granted we could have done it a bit more quickly, like after being wailed
Yeah, yeah,
here, um, just like staying in your ink to heal up and recover the damage. Um, because that's a really important thing in this game. Because you can recover damage so fast, it's almost always valuable to do between team fights or like after you
yeah.
get damaged.
True. Yeah, yeah.
hmm Yeah, good job not pushing this here. I Sure, okay. Yeah, this works. You could have maybe grabbed a bit more aggressively, like on tower, but that position on block worked as well. Oh, that's
Okay, yeah.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mhm. Did you hear a call out that the brush was there, or did you remember?
No, I remember that he dropped
Oh,
for
that's
some
huge.
reason. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we can see it here. Nice, that's really good. That's like really, really good awareness. Um,
Mm.
like to see those like few pixels on your screen, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
that they dropped, and then to like play that accordingly. Good object permanence, thumbs up. Um, we could have played like our range a bit more to make that more safe. Octobrush is really good at trading, and sometimes that just means like we can try to outrange it a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, it
we
was the case that I knew someone was there, but I didn't know who.
okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
hmm What I find to be valuable in those situations is just to assume that it's the worst possible weapon.
Hmm.
Like, or the weapon that would be most dangerous in that situation, and to play according to that. Um, so like in this situation, like both of those two weapons would be dangerous and could trade you if they come up to the ledge. Um, so yeah, for both of those, just playing max range, I think, would have been smart.
That makes sense.
hmm That's a okay, sure. It's a risky gun. Um, but it works out because like our teammate had splashdown. Okay. Um, did you know that there were like players to your right there?
Repeat that?
Did you know that there were like players to your right, or like in front of the tower?
No, I think I didn't know.
Okay. hmm Okay. Um, I think it's mostly a lesson in camera control. because we could have been able to see it if we looked at the engrave, because I'm pretty sure they take the engrave. We can look at it from their perspective, but I think that's what happens. And our camera is kind of focused away from them in a direction where we only see the other player. Okay, that doesn't work. That works as well. Yeah. But our camera is focused on something very different, so we have to watch out. From your perspective again. Camera control is a really important part of awareness. Because we can see right here, we basically died because of our camera control, right? If we also tried looking in this direction, then we totally would have seen them. We would have seen a very suspicious fizzy bomb. We would have seen some ink trails as well, probably. So, because this game is a third-person camera, and I'll remember this, we are at 142, and I'll go into the lobby real quick. Because there's a lot of funny things you can do with your first, like, third-person camera, that all really help with, like, awareness. Because, like, your character isn't your camera, and that means you can position your camera in creative ways to, like, be able to see areas that you, like, your inkling maybe can't see. So kind of the first thing, like the first lesson that we saw in game is that try to keep an eye on like areas where enemies will approach from. So if there's multiple areas, then we kind of have to switch between it or like back up to be in a spot where we can see both. And usually we don't want to back up because we like on duelies we want to try and fight forward. Which is a very general statement that I probably shouldn't say. But I feel like you know what I mean with it. From the mechanical play that I've seen so far. So like the main idea will just be like trying to watch all approach options, and mostly just following like where you see opponents and trying to keep track of opponents in your head, and where everyone could be. To kind of not get into the situation where you don't know where someone is, or you have like no clue at all. And because usually like the game gives you enough, or like people give you enough ideas on like where they are. If they're not tracking, then usually people tend to like just be in areas where you can sometimes catch a glimpse of them, or like see a sub that they're throwing, and then know like, okay, a fizzy just came from there, that means Lunar Blaster is there.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So that's kind of the first important thing. It's just using your camera to keep track of where people are. And then the more creative part, which I really, really like, is how you can use your camera to like see areas, like the top right, like the right dummies right here, for example, or even like the dummies on like this really high ground, for example. We can see this just by angling our camera correctly. And that's like, those parts are really cool. You can like, sometimes like, if people are climbing walls in front of you, you can quickly do stuff like that to see where they are and see if they're like climbing up, maybe they're like backing up, just swimming around in weird positions. The basic lesson here is that you can do a lot of stuff with your camera, if you are creative enough with it. And mostly that is just like looking around pieces of cover. On the ink block stacks, for example, that can be really useful. If you're like on right stack, you can just quickly, whoop, oh, there's someone behind the red wall, I'm dead.
Guys, I know that. Sometimes I try to do it like, when there's like a stack or something, I try to use the camera to look places that, I couldn't. So yeah, I try to do that sometimes, but maybe I should do it more often. Also, I feel that what happened with that Luna Blaster is that I throw a suction bomb, so in my head, no one was going to pass there, but yeah, like they did.
Yeah.
It was my fault, obviously. So yeah, I think something I need to work on is my camera controls. Sometimes I feel that I get too focused on just one path, and I kind of forget of the other paths. So yeah.
That makes sense. Because like it's a lot of stuff to keep track of. And to some degree, like you can't keep track of all 4 opponents at the same time. But what you can do is like try to keep in mind like roughly where people are and what like try to prioritize in your head when you're thinking of where people are, of which of those like positions are most important for you and like what the enemy can do. So like we can go back into the replay. So like in the replay, for example, we can think of like where are the enemies? What options can they take? Like, okay, we can see the dynamo is like to our left. They don't really have that many options because they'd have to drop, and then I think our teammate would probably clean that up. But to our right, there's enemy paint. There's like, or at least people could approach from there. So that path is probably a lot more dangerous to look at, or like more important to look at, because it's more dangerous, because people can approach from there more easily. Yeah, also I see what you mean with this action.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Working on that, on like this kind of stuff, is mostly just a thing of like going into solo queue and trying to like going into solo queue with the explicit idea of practicing that skill. Or practicing like I'm having trouble with dealing like with keeping track of multiple people from different angles. So when I go into this like solo queue playing session, like 1 hour, 2 hours, however long you practice, I'll try to mostly focus on keeping track of those different angles of where people are, which people are important right now, and kind of where I should position my camera and myself accordingly. Something that I really like for that is to kind of talk about it out loud. To kind of, when you practice, just constantly yap about your own gameplay. Like,
I mean,
constantly yap about
I agree.
those
Sometimes that
decisions.
helps. Yeah.
And like specifically those kind of decisions that you want to practice, because then like it basically becomes more direct to practice. That makes sense. Okay. Good shocking there. Okay. Let's see where you low on ink tank, because otherwise your main weapon might have just been stronger there. But that's a like relatively small thing. Yeah. Sometimes your main weapon is just stronger. In this case, it works out because Crab is a really good special, and it totally works in situations like this. But keep in mind, like, you transform, that means you lose your main weapon, and sometimes your main weapon just does the same thing. So in this case, I think it would have just done the same thing, and we could have kept, like, the Crab for, like, grabbing on spinner or something, or more like tower. So that's, like, another small consideration. I like this Crab. Okay. We could have thought about just using main fire here. I think we wanted to like kill the dynamo. Who was really low, and I'm kind of surprised that they didn't go down. But sometimes it's just a good idea to like ramp up your main fire. Because the main fire of Crab is really strong. And it would have probably like shredded this jump and maybe even them. If it reaches, I think it should reach. Okay, let's see that again. Because retake awareness is probably the most important part. And this is, I think, the first time really that you were in a like true retake situation with your team. So I feel like this is important to look at.
I can tell.
Yeah. Okay. So generally in retake, we need to make sure that we play safe, and that we don't go down, because that's kind of the worst thing that can happen. So like, what we can always do if we want to play really safe is just throw suctions at the tower and eventually get grab. Because suctions and tower stall it out for a really long time, and if there's a teammate nearby, they might even be able to get tower because of that. But like, even without that kind of sub spam, we can play a bit more safe by just like playing back a bit more and making sure we have paint control of this before we actually go forward. Yeah, because this ends up being really scary and we end up going down. I feel like because we are a bit too forward, in relation to like how much momentum the enemy team has. They have a bunch of specials. They kind of have to move forward because they're in overtime. And this is like the logical next area for them to take. So we can expect them to be here quite fast. And we should basically play accordingly. That is, like play around here probably and paint this area before we do anything else. I get trying to like do the more aggressive thing as duelies. My brain works the same way when I play duelies. But sometimes we just need to play safe.
Yeah, I try to control myself a lot because with duelies it's really easy to get excited and
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. For sure.
But yeah. Yeah, I completely agree here.
Yeah. Basically just remember that you have suction bomb. Unfortunate.
Yeah.
At that point I think it was just too late.
Honestly, I think the fact we lose was because of that mistake I had at the end. Because yeah, that was even if it was just one dead, like one kill, it really made the enemy snowball get bigger, so they could get more points faster. So yeah, that little moment in there, I think, was the reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's always more than one reason. There's always like a bunch of reasons, and your teammates probably did some similar things here. And I don't think it's like often valuable to think about like mistakes as like because of this mistake we lose the game. Sometimes it is, and sometimes that's just like you have to come to terms with that and realize I should stop making this mistake because it leads us to lose the game so often. But yeah, it definitely probably played a part.
Nah, yeah.
Because yeah,
it was disadvantage in a really crucial moments, and lose my team without one member was really important. So probably not the only thing, but
yeah,
an important one.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, good job, like that you like have a good idea of why this mistake was bad, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have questions for this match or anything we talked about so far?
No, I think I'm fine right now.
Okay. Oh, I meant to stop and leave, not lead you. Unfortunate. Now I have to wait out the intro to be able to press the plus button. Okay.
There.
Okay. Robo Clan Blitz. Okay. But yeah, really good mechanics in that game.
Thank you.
Okay. I like how you collected lamps here. Nice, good job. Was a bit risky, but you had your teammate on your left, so it works out. That crab was a bit awkward. Because of a bunch of reasons. This crab position is a bit awkward if you, like, don't actually have the space to stop people from going, like, under you and under this ledge. It still works out because crab is strong and you can just do it still. But it's a bit weird when, like, people get close to you because crab is mostly, like, super, super strong as soon as enemies are a bit further away from you. Because, like, they might, and they will actually force you to be able, like, to go into ball form and all that kind of stuff, which means you don't have as much impact as you maybe would like to. And then the other part is kind of we have 6 clams, and that means that, like, you won't be able to make a power clam for a while, because we grab. To be fair, to be very, very fair, that's not your fault. That's that's kind of the fault on your team for not being, like, not having enough clams to make a power clam themselves. Because if clam blitz is played correctly, then kind of it shouldn't be on one specific person to make a power clam in one specific situation. There should be at least 2 that can make a PC. But it is a bit weird. It works out because, like, I think for situations like this, it's totally fine to just crab and then make a power clam and then score. If the crab gets enough value and we get enough picks as a team, which we do in this situation. So it kind of works out. That's unfortunate. Teammates stole your clams. Stole it again. That's crazy. Okay, so there's a hammer to
the thing is that
yeah.
The thing is that we already lose all the push, so yeah.
At that point, yeah. Like at the point where they steal your clam the second time, we wouldn't have scored anyway. So it's not a big deal. Something that I think is valuable to talk about is in this situation, like, we hear someone pop hammer to a right. And that's something that's usually good to look at. So I guess in like another lesson in camera control. And to some degree warning signals as well. Because that kind of sound should be a warning signal. And should be a signal of, like, uh-oh, we should look at that. Because if you don't look at a hammer, then they can do terrible things to your inkling.
Yeah. Like, I'm usually try to be aware of all the sound cues of the specials. But yeah, sometimes sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
Like, I always try because I always try because the specials obviously are really dangerous.
Yep. Yeah, good job. And, like, I think you said that this was, like, somewhat casual, so you didn't, like, fully try out.
Yeah.
And, like,
I mean,
look at all that kind of stuff.
I could have done it, like, 100% better, but yeah.
Yeah. Good job there. And do we have? Yeah, we have some beacons. Something that's fun to like look at when your team has beacons is just to train like opening your map every now and then, because beacons like locate people if people are close to them. So it's funny to like, or just a good practice in general.
Yeah.
And beacons is a good way to train that. To just like flick your map open to see if you can see anything. See any enemies like close to your beacon. Because that's usually a good opportunity to just W key at them and splat them.
That's something I need to start doing more often because I look at the minimap sometimes, but yeah, I'm not usually aware if someone's near to beacons. So yeah, I have to do that more often.
Yeah. It's something where like practice makes... Wait, is practice makes master the way you say it in English?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, just by like doing it more, you'll get better at it. And like at seeing all this kind of stuff. Unfortunate mechanical fumble, but happens.
Yeah.
Good job there. Nice, good job punishing that. Yeah, I like this trap a lot. Okay, it ends
A lot
up
of stuff
being a
happens.
bit weird. A lot of stuff happens, and I think that's just because of open.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in scrims like half of that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But that's fine. Yeah, because the person behind you is like 1 HP. And then that happens. Yeah. That just kind of ends up happening that way. I don't have much to talk about there. Nice. Okay. I like how you... Oh, where did this detail come from?
Oh.
Um,
Like that was something, I guess.
I like how you're like moving around, and mostly like staying safe in those situations. Question is, where did that... Oh, they're on... Whoa. They are here. They're in your base. At least I think that's the T-deck, yeah. Curious. Okay, so map button.
I think the right thing to do there was the decap to say it this way, so we knew something was
Yeah.
happening back there.
That's true as well. Like callouts all this way would have really helped to like to realize that there's someone back here. It's also a situation of like, if we open map a bit more regularly, then we can maybe see that. Of like there's a lot of paint here, like maybe someone is painting the way, like their way towards us. Or maybe they're even damaged from the fight that happened here, whatever happened here. Yeah, so pretty much the same thing there. Nice. Yeah, good job. Good grab. Nice.
Oh.
And then true clan blitz faction we haven't scored yet.
Yeah, I don't
but
know
surely we will
why
know.
the ball is not
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good situation overall. Like good job dealing with it. I went back too far again. But yeah, that grab was good. And then the situation of like we didn't have clams was a bit weird, but that happens.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, we're probably down here. Yeah.
I try. Yeah.
Respect
I
the
tried to
attempt to jump out. Sometimes we can just keep fighting and like hope to get a trade. Because if you don't have cooler, then like jumping out usually results in you getting splatted, at least in situations like this. Because what you can do in like other situations is like maybe drop off a ledge. So like if you're retreating, get behind some cover or like drop off a ledge and then jump out, and then it's a lot safer. Because
true.
like you have that small window of time where you're like below the ledge and they have to first like drop off the ledge to get you or like get behind the cover or like do fall off shots. And that's usually the time where jumping out works a lot nicer. In like flat ground areas like this, it's rough. I don't know how much quick super jump you're running. But regardless,
I just have one sub, so
okay.
yeah.
But regardless, it's I think in like those flat ground situations, I just continue fighting and see if I can get a trade. If you don't have like a spot to go behind cover to make the jump out safer. Yep. Yep. Hammer is a special. And now they're just feeding.
Yeah.
They're pretty fair. Yeah. Nice. I think you knew because you positioned very quickly into that cover. So good job. Yeah. Good job abusing like the Reef Slider hitbox there.
I love doing that, the Reef Slider.
Yep. Okay. Honestly, not too much to talk about in this game. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. All good.
In terms of like objective, nothing much happens.
Yeah.
Which I guess is something to talk about. And I could now talk about Clam Blitz and how you should play effectively and how you should score. But like, to be honest, it's open. You did a relatively good job of getting clams. It's open, so yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff like that happens.
I mean, Clublitz is the slowest game of all four, so
Yeah.
stuff like that happens often.
Yeah. It shouldn't be that bad. It shouldn't be that bad that we only score once, and even then we don't even score more than 60. More like more than 40 points, I guess. I have a video on Clam Blitz and how you should play it effectively. But yeah, that's just shameless plug right here. Yeah, okay. Okay. Mommy, like, is this with the same group of people all the time, or is
Yeah.
it different? Okay.
I mean, no, it's not the same group of people, but kinda.
Okay. Were you in like a voice call with them?
Yeah. I mean, I was in a BC with them, but we were not talking about the game.
Yeah, that's fair. I figured as much.
Like, they don't take the game too seriously. I do, but I like to play with them.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, this is awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes something that sometimes happens to me is that I'm not aware at my ink, so I get low ink at crucial moments. Something I need to fix, to be honest, because yeah, that's really important.
Yeah. Let's think. How? I'm thinking if there's like any practice drill I can recommend apart from just playing with the intention of making your ink tank management better. Because that's kind of the recurring thing of like if you play with a specific intention of like practicing a specific thing, that's just always really effective. But I'm thinking if there's anything anything better here, any better practice drill. Maybe something we can think about is like scoring ourselves on how well we do manage our ink tank. Of like giving ourselves like -1 point every time we run out of ink in a bad situation. Or like ideas like that. Or like -1 every time you run out of ink and like -5 when you run out of ink in a bad situation. Or stuff like that. And then try to get the like least negative score, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that works. It's not something that happens to me like in every match.
Yeah,
or really
that's what I was
often,
thinking as well.
but it happens. So yeah,
my controller is empty. 1 second. Yeah, it's. And I guess that's where it kind of falls apart. I was just thinking of like a way you could like score your like your ink tank management, because that's like the next step to good practice, is if you can like score yourself on how good, like how well you're doing a specific thing, then that means that like you can kind of make a game out of making that score as good as possible. And that way like the practice is really efficient because it's focused on that specific thing. When like sometimes if you don't do that kind of stuff, you like sometimes it happens that the practice derails and you kind of lose the original focus and just end up kind of playing the game. Holy. Was that lag or was that just someone in the ink?
maybe both.
Okay. I think both, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Similar thing about defense here. Of like making sure we don't go in too far. And that we stay safe. And kind of respect where enemies are and the kind of one obstacles we have. Because they have a lot of enemy paint here. Or like they have a lot of paint. And there's a lot of enemy paint. Yeah. And there's like a machine that is able to do really consistent chip damage. The zipcaster is still alive as well. So all that is kind of stuff that should make us think we should play safer here. And not like W key rush in to get a trade or something. So instead just like stay safe, paint the ground, throw suction bombs. And then as soon as you have paint, you can do stuff.
I know that the disadvantage, the right thing to do, at least with my weapon, is always throw suction bombs and stay safe. If I can get the pick, then I get it. But yeah, don't force them. And the most important thing is to don't die, because if you die disadvantage, then most probably you will get, the enemy will get a lot of points.
Yep.
So yeah, I know that. It's just that I'm dumb sometimes.
Yeah. And like that's totally fair. Like all of us are inconsistent and do or like bad decisions a lot of times.
Yeah.
But we can like try to do practice that makes us do dumb decisions less.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, make sure to heal up here. Yeah, nice. Do you know the like crab turning tag?
Yeah, I mean,
or like
it has a lot of
turn.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's really good. Um, I've not seen you use it much in these games, so maybe something to practice because it's really, really slow.
It's
Granted,
something
you
I
weren't
usually
in
do.
situations where you
It,
had to use
it,
it much.
yeah.
Mhm. Nice. Nice. Oh, they are lagging.
What happened there? The
I
octopus
think,
didn't move for some reason.
yeah, I think it's just lag. Or like the replay system not recording something
Yeah.
correctly. But good job, like, surviving all of this. Up to this point, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah, nice.
Mechanic problems there.
Unfortunate. Um, it's just a like relatively small thing. I think we just didn't have aim onto them.
Hmm.
Or like yeah, they moved around and we didn't follow it enough. Um, Something to keep in mind
Like,
is like in situations like that, it's technically a bit better to like overshoot instead of undershooting. That is like instead of trying to like follow them slowly and kind of staying behind them with your reticle, it's a bit better to aim to the side of like where they are moving, because then they'll end up being trapped in your ink and you can hit the rest of the shots a lot better. It's a really small thing that probably doesn't do too much in this situation, because we just needed to hit 2 more shots. But it's something to like consider generally. That like if like in theory try to aim to like if try to aim like towards where they are going a bit more than to like where they were.
yeah. The only thing with that is that like movement in this game is really fast.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
if I try to do that, maybe I can get in a even worse situation. I
yeah,
think it works if they are like at just one shot to die, but yeah. Here,
yeah,
honestly, it was just my fault because it was a really easy kill. It's just that
yeah,
my aim didn't work.
yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
Nice, good job.
Risky jump, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. There's not too much we can do right here. Yeah, good job. As soon as they don't look at you, you can move forward. Until then, I like that you just play safe, because the machine matchup for you is like, it's rough specifically when the machine is in this spot of the map.
Yeah.
Because they can just like continuously slope over the ledge and you constantly get chipped. So like, good job on like waiting until they're looking at someone else, and then using that opportunity to move forward. Nice. Okay. I think we should have left earlier. We just kind of stayed in the spot, like in top mid, for a bit too long when they were like constantly throwing rainmaker shots over here. So I think we were still chipped a bit as well. Yeah, a bit. At that time, like, I think the best thing to do is just like roll off the ledge, and get behind a bit of cover.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what like dodge rolls are really, really good for, which is actually dodging. I think you've been overall doing a good job of that. But like in those situations as well, just a reminder to like you can use dodge rolls just to get behind cover. After
Yeah.
like enemies shoot at you, and that's usually a really great use of them. Because like really fast movement option and the antler doesn't matter much.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay. And crab was like a bit scary with the machine being so close to you. Because it can very easily force you into ball form. I would have just probably grabbed on top mid. It seems a lot safer, but that works as well. Replay moment. Okay, sure. Trading there is totally fine. As you have a good enough lead.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, good job using main fire here. Okay, I thought you jumped to the other beacon.
No.
Yeah, at this point we don't need to do much. There's one in our base, which I didn't actually know. How did they get there?
Yeah, that's weird.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That probably shouldn't have happened. I mean, it's open and you're playing double E leader, so like a lot of things are happening. But that's like we should have watched this joke basically as a team, and if like no one on your team is watching it, then you should.
Yeah.
At least in a competitive setting. This shot works, yeah. Yep, yeah. Oh, we lose lead. Oh, okay. I thought we just win there. That's awkward.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if I did the right thing there.
Okay, I think this shark is good, because sharking in Rainmakers is generally good. You could have also sharked here, like around this area. That probably makes it safer because people are less likely to look into that direction. When like over here, you'll end up getting hit by a lot of tip damage, and I think you do actually get hit by some tip damage.
PC bomb, yeah.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Replay, why? Why replay system do I need to restart? Like sharking is great at the end of Rainmaker games if you have lead. So I generally think it's like a good decision. It ended up being in a bit of a weird spot, and in like at a time where I think we needed to like go for the kill a bit earlier. Because like as soon as they get behind this block, it's really rough. They have a lot more cover, and like lead is basically directly there. So we should try to like look at getting them when they enter the choke, like right here. When they go through the choke point, they're probably the most vulnerable. Unlike unless they were to go here, but even then they'd get leads really fast.
I was scared to do that mainly because of the carbon.
Yeah.
I felt that if I tried to rush the Rainmaker, the carbon just will one shot me and that's it.
Yeah,
So
and they
I tried
probably will.
to. Mhm.
But like we don't really have a choice here because lead is directly here. So like as soon as they get behind this block, they basically get lead. Um, so we don't really have the choice of like getting like waiting for them to go into a better spot. And we kind of need to get it like really fast. Yeah. And I think that's like again where the spot was a bit weird, where like if we went into like the other spot behind Dome, that would have been a lot nicer because the opportunity to actually get the Rainmaker would have been really like really consistent as opposed to this, which would have been really risky. So I get not
Yeah.
going for it. Because yeah, it would have been really risky and probably wouldn't have worked out, but it was kind of our only choice here. Yeah, there's like, to be honest, a lot of things that lead up to this. Um, like this grab is good, and then afterwards, I think we play a bit too aggressively again.
Mhm.
We don't really need to fight here. We can. We also don't need to pick up, which is another point. Yeah. But like, you don't really need to fight here. You can just stay safe. You can go into pit if you want to, like like behind you. You can just back up and spam bombs if you want to. All that kind of stuff works. But kind of taking the more risky option of taking the fight is probably like less good because
Yeah.
it makes it likelier that the bad thing happens, which ends up happening of like we die, we lose the fight, and then they get an opportunity that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And yeah, then the other part is like we could have sharked around here. Probably not on Dome because Machine will likely watch that. But like behind it around the ink rail. And then that works a lot nicer. I think just around here. Okay, yeah. I think for awareness, this game was like overall relatively good. There's like apart from the few things we talked about, I don't think there's too much to say. Just because it's like it's a bit of a like weird situation of it like
Mhm.
being open and not like a fully try hard situation, which is like totally
Yeah.
fine. Like it's fine to not want to try hard this game all the time. Yeah, unfortunate that the Kraken doesn't end up working as well.
Yeah.
Because like if Kraken goes here, then you can cover that or something like that. So in a competitive setting, this shark might have actually worked because like if you call out that you're like sharking on left and you're covering the left side, then your team may be able to just stall out the right side
Mhm.
and give you a better opportunity or stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, probably with better clouds that could work better. But yeah.
Yeah, with not double elite, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any other questions for this or like any kind of stuff we talked about so far?
I think what I would like right now is like a little list of things that
Yep.
I could I can do better.
Yeah. Um, we can definitely do that. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Um. hmm. I think there's a bunch of smaller points. Um, and then like it's probably best to kind of work on them like individually over time.
Yeah.
Like not work on everything all at the same time because that's probably a bit too much. But there's a bunch of things um we can work on or like you can work on. Um,
Mhm.
so what we talked about is I think honestly, the biggest one is camera control. And kind of keeping track of enemies and different like routes, like options enemies have.
Yeah,
And
like try to
enemy
look at all
options.
the options the enemy have with my camera, basically.
Yeah. So I think we talked about that in the first game of like
Hmm.
trying to keep track of enemies, trying to think of like where enemies are, and then keeping track of like the most important ones specifically, because you can't really keep track of everyone usually. At least if the enemy team plays well, then that shouldn't be possible.
Hmm.
Like if they spread out enough on the map, then like at some point it's just impossible to even like look at everyone at the same time. Um, so the idea then is to keep track of which are the most important things to look at, which directly impacts you and what directly impacts the objective. So like in Rainmaker, what kind of options can enemies take to split the Rainmaker? In Tower Control, kind of the same thing. What options can people take to get to tower? And I think for the other modes, like it's pretty much the same. And then basically try to keep track of the most important ones there. And that's kind of where
Yeah.
camera control becomes really important. Where like we want to make sure that our camera is facing towards the enemies, towards the areas that enemies want to take, and towards like where they are, so we can keep track of what they're doing.
Hmm.
And then we can pick up on all sorts of signals, of like they're throwing subs, they're painting the ground, um, they're just like standing in kid form. We can maybe see ink trails, and all that kind of stuff is like gives us really good knowledge. And I think a lot of the stuff like if you saw that, if your camera was pointed that way, you saw all of that. But it was kind of the step of pointing the camera into that way that was sometimes an issue.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's kind of the biggest thing with camera control. And then like the other part is like uh creative camera control basically of like we can use it to
Yeah.
look behind cover, look behind walls, all that kind of stuff. Um,
Right.
mm, yeah, keeping track of enemy options. Um, then looking at map. Um, that's like a smaller one, and I think it's like not not the most important thing about awareness. But I think like from what I saw, you're at a stage where it might be really helpful because a lot of other stuff you were really good at. Like I think you were really good at like looking at the HUD to see when people have special, and like seeing where people are and keeping track of what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. Um, so then kind of the logical next step is to look at the map more because it gives you a bunch of information. Like where people are, or like where paint is, which is probably the most important thing. Then where your teammates are, where enemies are if they're damaged, um, where enemies are if they're near beacon, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you can even see like paint trails, and because of that, just deduct that like there's a like S blast going this way right now because I can see the paint trail of an S blast.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good advantage with all the weapons. You know what kind of ink trail they do.
Yep.
So even if you can see them in the map
Yep.
exactly, when you see one type of ink pattern, you can tell who is going over there.
Yep, for sure. That's really,
Mhm.
really useful in openings as well. Especially in something like Inkblot, for example, where like there's a lot of times where like someone will take the right flank and drop into your like right tree, right stack area. And then it's really valuable to be able to tell like which weapon that is specifically. So yeah, that's definitely useful knowledge.
Mhm.
Um, I think your mechanics were overall really, really good. Um, some small aim slippers, but like that happens. That just happens sometimes. Don't think it's something to
Yeah.
be worried about too much. If you want to do aim training, I can give you a video. Um, but I don't think it would be necessary, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah, I have a warm-up routine to, but still, I think I could be so much better at aiming. Even if I'm not bad, I could be better. So
Okay.
I used to be really bad at it actually.
Yeah.
But I think I've been getting better these days. So
Yeah,
yeah.
what I saw was really good. I'll just like send you that video then. It's I think it was by Remixed Fern. It's just a really good video about like different angles and different like types of aim and all that kind of stuff. I guess like for just a quick overview and like to some degree just summary of that video. Basically like aim drills at the start of like practice sessions are really useful. Even if it's just like 5 minutes. I think Remixed Fun does like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Or that's what he talks about in the video. I don't quite remember. But around that length.
I do 15 minutes. So yeah, that works.
That works. And then it's just like different drills in those in the lobby right here. And all that kind of stuff. Something that you should keep in mind about drills in lobbies is that like sometimes it just becomes muscle memory of where the like specific dummies are. And then you don't train like your actual aim, but just like where the dummies are and aiming at those dummies in specific instead of aiming at like actual players. Something that I really like doing is like going to like some spot around this part of the lobby, closing my eyes, just spinning around, and then as soon as I open my eyes, I try to immediately like jump to like where targets are. So like closing my eyes, spinning around, opening, jumping to targets. And that's a good way to like train that skill that's like of quickly seeing an enemy and immediately jumping to them, which like you can't really train otherwise in this lobby because like you know where every dummy is.
That actually sounds nice. I'll try to implement it in my routine.
Yeah. I usually do it with like those moving dummies because they're moving.
Yeah.
And that helps.
The other one,
What you can also do is like start on the like stationary dummies and then move over to the moving ones later. To like make it a bit like more of a step up. And then like for the first one you just like practice jumping. Then for the second one you actually practice like tracking as well. With dualies, it's also a good idea to just like dodge roll and then like open your eyes, dodge roll, and then like immediately track onto the enemy. Because that's what you'll do a lot in game. Okay. That's my quick advice on aim. For the long advice, just watch the video that I'll send you after the session. Because it's really good. Yeah. So that's the kind of advice I have for aim. If you want to practice aim, then yeah, I'll link you that video.
Yeah.
I aim was
probably
really good,
will
but it's always something you can train, and aim drills are really useful. I've personally never done them because at the point where I learned that they would be useful, I haven't played comp seriously since then. But yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, like in my mind, even if I know how to do something, I always like to watch videos and guides and stuff.
Yep.
Because even if I know how to do it, more information is always good, you know?
Yep, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest points for now. There's always like more stuff to work on, and I think we touched upon some stuff of that today. But for the like next few steps of like the next few weeks, I think this should get you far.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked a bit about how to practice all of this earlier. I'll I'll do a quick recap of basically it's like a good idea to have very thoughtful practice, very like specific practice of one specific skill. So when you want to practice like these 4 things, the best way would be to like first practice this in a playing session, then in the next playing session practice this, then in the one after that this, then maybe come back to like this, and all like kind of do one at a time basically, instead of trying to do all of this in one game. Because if you
Yeah,
try to do
because
all of this in one game, it just doesn't work.
yeah, it doesn't work because you're trying to do all at once, so you can focus on fix
Yep.
fix just one, and then yeah, it's like you're not doing anything basically.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Um, Yeah. So just like go into a game and try to think about like, I want to optimize my camera control. I want to make sure that I keep track of where people are and kind of think about what options they could take and where should I look because of that and where should I position because of that. Um, should I like play safer? Should I just move forward and splat them because they're overextended? Those kind of ideas.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, another recap, like talking about your decisions in game, I find to be really useful. Just like constantly yapping about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then that means that like if you have a good reason for something, you'll state it out loud and you'll remember, oh, this is a really good reason for doing this. I should do it again. And if you don't have a good reason, you'll try to find a reason and you'll notice that there is none.
Yeah, like usually yap about what I'm doing in a game helps me to focus for more funny that it sounds.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. For looking at map, I find it to be like to for that kind of practice to be really useful when there's a beacon weapon on your comp, or like when you yourself are playing beacon.
Mhm.
Um, just because like beacons give you a lot of knowledge and kind of incentivize looking at map a lot. And then
Yeah.
that's just like a good time to kind of practice that. So sometimes when I like play games and I notice like I have beacons on my comp, I just move over like to practicing map flicking instead of what I was doing before, just because it's fun and it's a lot of like doing it when there's
Mhm.
beacons means you get rewarded for it more, and so like you end up having better practice because your subconscious brain rewards you for doing things, and subconscious is
Mhm.
strong. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about any of that?
I think I'm fine right now. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think
Okay.
I'm fine right now.
Um, yeah, I think that's everything for today then. It was a bit of a shorter one. Okay, 1 hour 20 minutes. That's fine. Um, yeah, okay. Um, I hope that helped. And you have some stuff to work on now. I'll send you that video after, along with just some notes and
Yeah.
a feedback form and all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, okay. Mm, okay. Um, yeah, I will end stream here. Thank you for the 3 people that are watching right now. Um,